All right, let's just dive right into this. Look around you, or, just imagine stepping into a super dense forest. The sheer variety of life, from the little plants at your feet to the birds flying above, all the way down to the microscopic stuff you literally can't even see, is absolutely staggering, right? But how do we actually make sense of all of it? In this explainer, we're going to explore exactly how scientists take this incredibly diverse, honestly kind of chaotic natural world and organize it into this beautiful logical system. Because without this system, our understanding of medicine, agriculture, even our own planet's survival would totally collapse. So today, we are demystifying the living world. And here is our roadmap for how we'll do it. First, the problem of biodiversity. Second, the rules of naming life. Third, the science of taxonomy. And finally, the taxonomic hierarchy. Let's kick things off with Section 1, the problem of biodiversity and how we move from local confusion to global clarity. So think about this. When we have literally millions of different organisms covering the globe, how do scientists worldwide avoid total, utter confusion when they're studying nature? To really grasp the problem here, just look at this number. 1.7 to 1.8 million. That is the staggering number of species that are currently known and described on Earth right now. This is what we call biodiversity. And honestly, what's truly wild here is that this number is constantly growing. As we explore new areas or even just revisit old ones, new organisms are popping up and being identified all the time. It is just a massive, overwhelming scale of life. Now, historically, we've known the plants and animals in our own backyards by their local names. Makes perfect sense, right? But here is the catch, and it's a big one. Local names vary wildly from place to place, even within the exact same country. Imagine a scientist in Brazil and a scientist in Japan trying to discuss a newly discovered plant that has some crazy breakthrough medicinal properties. If they're just using local, everyday terms, that miscommunication could literally mean life or death. We desperately needed a way to guarantee that a particular organism is known by the exact same name all over the world. We needed a major shift to standardized scientific names. Which brings us right to Section 2, the rules of naming life, and the logic behind the Latin. Okay, so to achieve this global clarity we were just talking about, scientists rely on something called nomenclature. Basically, this is the absolutely vital process of standardizing how we name living things. It ensures that every single known organism gets one, and only one, universally accepted name. But keeping it real for a second, nomenclature is only possible after a really rigorous process of identification. We have to correctly describe the organism first before we can even think about slapping a name on it. To actually pull this off, biologists all over the world have established these strict international codes so everyone is playing by the same rules. And to make this whole thing work smoothly, biologists use this highly elegant, honestly brilliant system called binomial nomenclature. We got this from Carolus Linnaeus. He basically turned a super dense scientific process into a really simple, universal 4-step checklist. Ready? First up, biological names are generally in Latin and written in italics, no matter where the organism actually comes from. Second, the name always has 2 parts. The first word is the genus, and the second word denotes the specific epithet, which is basically the species. Third, if you're writing this out by hand, both words gotta be separately underlined. And fourth, the genus always gets a capital letter to start, while the specific epithet stays entirely lowercase. Pretty straightforward, right? Let's look at a real-world example, the scientific name for the mango, Mangifera indica. You can see those exact rules playing out perfectly right here. It's a 2-word format. Mangifera starts with a capital M for the genus, and indica is entirely lowercase for the specific epithet. Oh, and you might also notice that little abbreviated word Lin tacked onto the very end. That stands for Linnaeus. It's just a quick way of indicating that he was the original author who first described this species. It's like this highly efficient, totally information-packed little label. All right, moving on to Section 3, the science of taxonomy, or how we go about grouping the biological universe. So now that we actually know how to name an individual organism, how on earth do we group these millions of identified organisms together? Well, let me ask you a quick question. What image instantly pops into your head when you hear the word dog? I mean, you immediately picture a dog, right? You definitely don't picture a cat. Or if I say the word mammal, you naturally think of animals with external ears and body hair. If I say wheat, boom, you picture a field of wheat, not a bowl of rice. The very second we use any of these terms, our brains are hardwired to naturally associate certain observable characters with the organisms in that group. Well, these convenient little mental categories that we just naturally form, that is exactly what scientists call taxa. Taxa is just the fancy scientific term for these recognizable groups.
And the really beautiful thing here is that these taxa operate at very different levels. Like, dogs are a taxa, but dogs are also mammals, right? Which is another taxa. And mammals are animals, which is yet another taxa. They are all totally valid categories used to study organisms, just zoomed in or zoomed out to different scopes.
Which brings us directly to taxonomy. Taxonomy is the rigorous scientific process of classifying all living organisms into these different taxa. Now, to be fair, taxonomy isn't a completely new idea. Back in our early days, humans classified organisms strictly based on their uses. Which plants were good to eat, which ones made good clothing, what could be used for shelter. But today, it is a highly detailed science. Modern taxonomic studies classify life based on so much more: external and internal structure, cell structure, developmental processes, and even complex ecological information. It's the whole shebang. But scientists wanted to look even further. They didn't just want to group organisms by their current traits, they wanted to understand the historical relationships between them. This broader, deeper branch of study is known as systematics. The word actually comes from the Latin systema, meaning the systematic arrangement of organisms. Fun fact, Linnaeus actually used Systema Naturae as the title of his famous publication. Basically, systematics takes everything taxonomy does and it adds this absolutely crucial extra layer: evolutionary relationships. It literally tells the story of how everything on Earth is connected.
And that brings us to our final section, Section 4, the taxonomic hierarchy, where we are climbing the ladder of life.
You see, classification isn't just a one-and-done single step. It's a full hierarchy of steps, where every single step represents a rank or category. Take a look at this map. You can kind of think of it like a set of those Russian nesting dolls. We start all the way at the bottom with species, and then we climb upwards through genus, family, order, class, phylum, or division, all the way up to the massive kingdom level. And here is the absolute golden rule you need to remember as we climb this ladder. As we go higher up, from species towards kingdom, the number of common characteristics shared by the organisms actually goes down. Let's break these steps down real quick.
We're starting at the very bottom rung with species. This is a group of individual organisms with fundamental core similarities. To be considered a distinct species, you literally must be able to distinguish one from another closely related species based on distinct morphological differences, basically very clear physical traits. For example, Panthera leo is the scientific name for a lion. Leo is that specific species. It's the absolute most specific granular level of our entire classification system.
Now, stepping up just one rung, we hit the genus. A genus aggregates closely related species that have more characters in common with each other than they do with species of other genera. Look at the potato, which is Solanum tuberosum, and the brinjal, or eggplant, which is Solanum melangena. It is absolutely fascinating when you realize they are two completely different, distinct species, yet they share so many fundamental features that they get grouped under the exact same genus, Solanum.
Let's see how this rapidly builds up the middle steps of our ladder. Genera are grouped into a family. So the genus for lions and tigers gets grouped together with the genus for cats into the family Felidae. Then those families are assembled into an order. So the cat family, Felidae, joins the dog family, Canidae, to form the order Carnivora. Following so far? Then related orders are grouped into a class. The order Carnivora joins up with the order Primata to form the class Mammalia. Just notice how with every single step up we take, the umbrella gets wider and wider, and the shared similarities get a bit less specific.
Finally, we reach the very top of the hierarchy. Classes that share really foundational, big-picture features, like animals having a notochord and a dorsal nerval system, are grouped into a phylum, such as Chordata. For plants, classes with a few similar characters are assigned to a category called division. And at the absolute peak of the mountain, all these various phyla and divisions fall under massive, distinct kingdoms. We're talking huge groupings here, like the animal kingdom Animalia or the plant kingdom Plantae. When we tie this whole thing together, we get this beautifully organized framework. Looking here, you can see exactly how a human being, a housefly, a mango, and wheat all fit absolutely perfectly into this logical filing system. Take us, for example. A human is Homo sapiens. We're in the genus Homo, family Hominidae, order Primata, class Mammalia, and phylum Chordata. Every single organism out there represents a distinct biological entity and holds a very specific rank in this system. It takes the overwhelming, mind-boggling chaos of billions of living things and transforms it into a structured, readable universe. It's almost like magic.
Which leaves us with a truly fascinating, kind of humbling thought. Millions of plants and animals have been identified, right? Yet we know for a fact that a massively large number still remains completely unknown. As we continue to push deeper into untouched forests and dive down into unexplored oceans, identifying countless new, totally bizarre species, how is this ancient, established framework going to stretch to hold all the massive biodiversity we haven't even discovered yet? The next time you step outside, really ask yourself, what invisible branches on the tree of life are we walking right past today?